Oizya was it? Mina banger almost there because the ish very been lot of nazar and so I heard I'm of Galbers Margazio. No running it snibs the Oizya grabs her bike from out her house and throws on her only pair of shades to keep her eyes from watering up anymore. As Oizya is pedaling aimlessly through Santorini, she tries to not let all the gloomy Greek philosophy that's spray-painted on the abandoned buildings stating that suffering is the only constant overthrow her mind with even more despair. Oizya then drags her shoes against the pavement as she takes a shortcut through the Santorini woods. As Oizya cuts through the woods that only become more isolating the further in she goes. Oizya can't decide if it's better to be alone in the woods or back in Santorini, where everyone either stared for too long, didn't stare enough, or everyone stared when you didn't want them to. The constant weighing of the bad with the worse and things never getting better is becoming too exhausting for Oizya as it would for most. Every traumatic event just plays throughout Oizya's head nonstop and no one to listen to her is a feeling that she feels can only be ended in one way. For Oizya, she doesn't have much of a way to get away from Santorini. She's taken boats to other islands, but once she's arrived, she was faced with the same problem she had in Santorini. She was still all alone in a constant pain that made her want to go into a suicidal rage because deep down she knows the human condition is an ugly condition and she can't get out of the condition she's been put in. No matter where Oizya went, she couldn't help but ask herself, why am I still doing this? Oizya can't get over the fact that Asclepius was the last person she could reach out to, and he's decided to believe Kara's friend in everything he said about Oizya, just like everyone else. Oizya's family turning against her, the majority of Santorini turning against her, and no cure, medicine, or remedy for what Kara's friend has done to her is beginning to make her violently nauseous. Oizya stares off into the woods in silence. Her mind is slowly starting to comprehend her lack of options, and now the options that she is starting to come up with is throwing her into an existential panic. Oizya lets out a deafening scream that nobody cared about as she pushes her head up against a tree and begins to cry. Oizya is sick of yelling out the truth of what Kara's friend did to her that night, and everyone just stares at her like lying scum cause she didn't say anything after it happened. Oizya's head won't stop piercing and throbbing with pain. She silently says to herself with drool dripping out of her mouth, I'm giving up. This hurts too much. 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 Oizya stumbles onto the Santorini streets that are covered with tourists. She's completely abandoned the bike she left the house with, and now she's just crying through the streets as she holds up this backpack to her chest with her hand in it. Everyone in the Santorini streets is staring at Oizya uncomfortably as she cries some of the ugliest tears and begs everyone around her for help. Everyone keeps backing away from Oizya as she repeatedly yells out, It's not true, just help me. The Santorini sun keeps multiplying the redness in Oizya's face from all of her yelling as she arrives to the cafe her brother Karis and his friend are sitting at. Karis and his friend stare around them at everyone staring at them as Oizya continues to cry and drool. Karis looks at Oizya and says, "What the fuck are you doing, Oizya?" Oizya removes her shaky hand from her backpack holding onto a pistol. Everyone standing around them starts to panic and scream, including Karis and his friend, as Oizya lets go of her backpack and the pistol is fully exposed. Karis yells at Oizya to stop it, but Oizya doesn't want to stop until this pain stops. Oizya looks at Karis and cries to him, asking, "Who do you believe? Who do you believe, Karis? Why don't you believe me?" Karis jumps up and tries to restrain the pistol from Oizya. Karis then yells at Oizya as they fight for the pistol and says, "Just own up to it, Oizya." Oizya lets off one last deafening scream of agony and disbelief right before the pistol they were fighting went off, letting off a shot into Oizya's chest. The blood started to drip from Oizya, and she never came back.
The goddess with some serious issues. Alisis is the Greek goddess of anxiety and depression. In fact, her Roman name Miseria is where the modern term misery comes from. Born without a dad from the primordial goddess Nyx, she had a particular hatred for mankind and all things humanity. It is believed that her evil intentions towards mortals could trigger natural disasters and profound suffering. She is the personification of anxiety, stress, and misery. So, the next time you're feeling down, blame it on Oizya.